and welcome to GameSack. This episode, we are taking a look at Data East.
Data East, yeah, I know they've got some good games out there, but I also know they have definitely a lot of bad, not a lot, but they do have bad games out there. So
Sure, every developer does.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about them. Do you? I mean, can you tell me some more about them?
Well, here's a little bit more about Data East themselves.
Ooh.
Data East was founded in 1976 and made their first arcade game in 1978. They were sometimes known as DECO, or DECO, which stands for Data East Corporation. Throughout their existence, Data East was a heavy contender in the arcade scene, creating games like Karate Champ, Bump and Jump, Ring King, Shell Knob, Atomic Runner, and even RoboCop. That's right, RoboCop. Many of their earlier arcade games used interchangeable cassettes called the Deco cassette system, which was a predecessor to JAMA technology. They were also into the pinball scene with many of their own machines. Some of their later arcade games were amazing, like Boogie Wings, a shooter where you fly a plane. Your pilot can jump out, run around and shoot, and can also mount other vehicles. Or how about Nitro Ball, a game show themed overhead run and gun where you collect lots of prizes on bizarre playing fields. Check out our Left in Arcade episodes for full reviews on these and lots of other crazy-ass Data East arcade games that never made it to a home system. Data East was declared bankrupt in 2003 and most of their IPs were acquired by other companies. One of those companies is called Payon, and they're made up of former Data East employees, and they made Donkey Kong King of Swing, Jungle Climber, and Barrel Blast for Nintendo. Long live Data East.
Wow, Joe, that was pretty informative. I actually learned two things that I didn't know before about Data East.
Really? I'm going to put you to the test here. What two things were those?
Firstly, that cassette thing. You know, games on cassette, this old.
Mm-hmm.
And after Data East went away and some of the employees left and went and made that other company, Payon. Yeah,
Sure.
that one.
Yeah. My arm itches too.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we've got some games to cover now, and they're actually all from Data East. Who would have guessed?
Amazing.
So anyway, let's just get started. Heavy Barrel is an overhead run and gun game in the arcade. This game was unique because it used a special rotating joystick to control where you aim independently of where you're running, kinda like a fancy Robotron. You'll get keys by shooting down the red enemies. These keys unlock chests that have special items or weapons in them. This game was also ported over to the NES. The control here is slightly weird, but overall I think they did a good job of porting it over. Some may be put off by how the screen kind of floats around and doesn't really follow your character in a solid fashion like other games, but not really me, I got used to it. This version is pretty fun and I really like the music. I feel that this is a solid run and gun game for this system, and it can even be enjoyed by two players simultaneously. Unfortunately, nobody wanted to play Heavy Barrel with me on my NES when I recorded this one. Midnight Resistance is a spiritual sequel to Heavy Barrel. This one is a side-scrolling run-and-gun where you're trying to rescue your family. It also featured the same special rotating joystick for your aim. The Genesis version had to be changed, and it defaults to the B button locking your aim direction as long as you hold it down. The A button toggles the gunfire on and off, and the C jumps. I find that this works the best. It does kind of take some time to get used to, but I actually grew to like it. Kind of. Like Heavy Barrel, you'll collect keys dropped by the red enemies in order to gain power-ups, but this time you do it between the levels. My favorite weapon has gotta be the three-way shot. Oh yeah! You can also get special attacks which are triggered by pressing up while firing your main weapon. The Genesis version's graphics certainly aren't as good as the arcade, but the music is a whole hell of a lot better. That's because the music was redone by famed composer Hitoshi Sakimoto. So is this the best run and gun game ever? Certainly not, but I do find it kind of fun. Unfortunately, the Genesis version here is only for one player. Neither Heavy Barrel or Midnight Resistance really gained much success, but you should check them out anyway.
Lock and Chase was Data East's attempt to cash in on the Pac-Man craze in 1981. This is one of the games released on the Deco cassette system that Joe mentioned earlier. As you can see, the arcade game plays similar enough to Pac-Man that at first look, it seems like a blatant ripoff. You have your character who is a bank robber. He wanders around a maze collecting dots that are supposed to be coins. Instead of ghosts chasing you, you have policemen chasing you. You can trigger doors behind you to stop policemen temporarily, but watch out, because you can trap yourself into a sticky situation. The developers weren't completely lazy with the release of this game on the Game Boy though. They added a bunch of new gimmicks to keep the game somewhat fresh in each area. Each level has its own play mechanic that's used on the 3 sub-levels of that area. These range from sliding doors to question mark blocks that shrink enemies, alarm clocks that wake up sleeping enemies, to doors that'll take you to other parts of a level. They even gave the Game Boy game a soundtrack, and some of the tunes are actually pretty good. Lock and Chase doesn't have enough to keep you wanting to come back and play again and again, but I'd suggest the Game Boy version over the arcade since it has much more to offer.
Data East even had their own Sonic clone with High Seas Havoc on the Genesis. In this one, you play as an a seal who looks like a human trying to rescue some girl and her important map or something like that. You run around collecting gems, and guess what 100 of these gets you? That's right, an extra life. Bet you would have never guessed that in a million years. The only thing the buttons do is jump, but if you press it again midair, you do a flash kick. This is often the best way to defeat bosses, as simply bouncing on them usually doesn't do anything. You can bounce on regular enemies though. You can also bounce on treasure chests to collect special items. The control is pretty good, but I found that the game is rather hard for a Sonic clone. Fortunately, you do have a life bar that can take quite a few hits. Havoc himself isn't annoying or anything, but they were really stretching when they decided to make him a seal. Though I guess that's not really any worse than a hedgehog or an electric duck. The graphics are nice with lots of color and some eye-catching designs here and there. I like the giant bosses who are all about murdering seals. Hey man, if you kill me, you'll be hearing from PETA, you mofo. And they are not polite when it comes to murdering seals. The music is pretty good for the most part, as it should be in any platformer like this. I don't recall this one getting a lot of exposure when it was released back in 1993, so it's probably somewhat of a hidden gem. Pick it up if you can find it. Or not, it's up to you.
Here's Caveman Ninja, or as is more commonly known, Joe and Mac. The story is as old as cavemen themselves, where your girls get knocked on the head by a rival clan and are taken away. Of course, you need your women back, so you set out on a quest to retrieve them. The arcade version is good looking and I like the graphics. Well-drawn characters, dinosaurs, and everything is bright and colorful. Some of the levels are really short, and good luck defeating the second boss because I haven't been able to. I ran out of tokens and the Chuck E. Cheese staff said I was scaring the children. The game was ported home for the Super Nintendo and then the Genesis. The Genesis version looks like and follows the arcade version very closely. The game is very hard, and I almost gave up at that damn level 2 boss. But as is with most bosses, you learn their pattern and they become absurdly simple, as is the case here. The Super Nintendo version was changed up quite a bit. It loosely follows the other versions. You'll notice a lot of similarities between level designs and the bosses. This time around, there's a map screen where you can pick which level you want to play. There's also bonus levels you can open once you find a key in the normal level. This version is a mixed bag because on the one hand it looks really nice and sounds great. On the other hand, it moves slower and it's really choppy. It's also much easier than the other two versions. I wonder if they dumbed it down a bit because, Nintendo is for kids. Yeah, right. You ever heard of the Mega Man series? Both home versions are good, and I enjoyed playing both of them once I got into them. Next in the series was a game titled Congos Caper. This one is exclusive to the mighty Super Nintendo. Now, why this is part of the Joe and Mac series, I don't know. I mean, it plays like the other games, but it stars a monkey who turns into a boy. Once you take a hit, you turn back into a monkey. It's another solid game that's pretty fun to play. Then Data East finally released Joe and Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics on the Super Nintendo. This one is set up a bit differently. There are villages you can visit to replenish your health or buy flowers for girls who don't even want them. There's also an overworld map that you can freely wander and pick the level you want to tackle. Inside each level, the gameplay is similar to previous games. As with the other Super Nintendo games in the series, this one is a bit on the easy side. Still, it's a solid game and can be fun to play from time to time.
Bad Dudes vs. Dragonninja is an arcade beat-em-up. President Ronnie has been kidnapped and the only way to rescue him is with your feet and your fists. You'll fight your way through the streets, on top of a tractor trailer, through a smelly-ass sewer, a rocky forest, on top of a train, through a cave, and finally through the enemy's warehouse. Save Ronnie and he treats you to a delicious cheeseburger. That was a lot of work to get you back, Ronnie, but it was worth it. I sure do love me some cheeseburgers. Hell, I wish there was a game dedicated to making burgers. What's weird is that this plays like a beat 'em up, but you can't move all around like you can in most so-called belt scrollers. You can collect extra weapons like knives and nunchucks, which last for a limited amount of time. The graphics and the music are fair. They're nothing that'll really blow your mind. It was ported to the NES in 1989. This one adds a lot more flicker and some choppy movement to the mix just in case you like things like that. And who doesn't? Come on! Also, the buttons are ass backwards, so you jump with B and you attack with A. But the best part about this NES version is that they simplified the plot even more. Now it's just, the president has been kidnapped by ninjas. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? And that's all you have to go on. That's okay, as you don't need to hear any more than that. You'll find them eventually. Who's bad? I'm bad. Too Crude is a spiritual sequel to Bad Dudes. Data East sure loves spiritual sequels, don't they? This one takes place in the year 2030. It's a post-apocalyptic setting and you're once again working for the US government, but this time you're trying to stop some terrorists. Gameplay-wise, it's basically like a more comical Bad Dudes. Your characters are always cracking hilarious one-liners. Jingle bells, jingle bells. But now you can also pick up stuff and throw a large amount of different objects, and that does add to the fun. The graphics and the music are a lot better this time around as well. The Genesis version is called Too Crude Dudes, just in case you didn't know it was a follow-up to Bad Dudes. The graphics have lost a ton of luster during the port and nearly all of the voices are gone. Fortunately, the music by Hitoshi Sakimoto is still good and the game plays relatively decently. What's odd is that some of the stages are presented in a different order for some reason. And I hate these robo-dogs. Get off my nipple, you damn dog! I'm not your mom. Overall, the game is a decent addition to your Genesis library.
Here's the classic Burger Time, which came out in 1982. This is a game for all you aspiring short-order cooks out there and for people who just like hamburgers. Given Joe's love for hamburgers, I'm surprised that this isn't one of his favorite games. Actually, I think this is more like a bad dream a burger flipper has when he goes to sleep at night. You play as Chef Peter Pepper, and your goal is to make a certain amount of hamburgers, all while being chased by enemy foods. In the NES version, the burgers look even less appetizing than they do in the arcade. As you can see, the layers to a hamburger are lined up vertically. You simply walk over each layer to drop it down one level and eventually complete a hamburger. It's a simple idea, but it's not a simple game. Luckily, you have a pepper shaker that'll stun enemies for a few seconds so you can squeeze out of a tight situation. But pepper is limited, so use it wisely as it doesn't replenish itself when you make it to the next level. The enemies are really good at pissing you off, but I love sausage, eggs, and pickles, so it's hard for me to be mad at them. If you're smart enough in the way you drop your layers, you can take out a few of these enemies and give yourself a chance. You can drop a layer on top of an enemy's head, which will kill them, and this works good. The better way to kill your enemy is to lure them onto a layer and drop it with the enemy on top of it. This will make the layer of your hamburger drop 2 levels. As you can see, I'm still trying to perfect my gameplay, but it's tough.
Oh man, Dave, I am so hungry right now. I could sure use a cheeseburger.
That's funny you mentioned that, because that's one more thing I learned about Data East. They really seem to like cheeseburgers a lot.
So do I. I love cheeseburgers, especially good ones.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go get one right now.
No. We've got a little bit more to talk about here, so you got to sit still. So we're not.
That's true.
You can just hold off on your hunger for a little bit longer.
Maybe the following games won't have so much to do with burgers and instead just crazy awesome gameplay. Did you know that Data East had a real Ghostbusters arcade game in 1987? Neither did I, so I'm going to pull the following information straight out of my ass. Just kidding, I actually play the game. This is an overhead free-roaming run-and-gun. Well, maybe not completely free-roaming, but you're not forced to just scrolling up. You have two weapons, a shot that fires repeatedly as well as your proton beam. There are monsters all over the place and you can kill them with either the shot or the proton beam, though the shot uses less energy. After each enemy dies, their ghost starts floating around. You trap them by shooting them for a couple of seconds with the proton beam. Between stages, you'll deposit all of the ghosts that you caught back at your base. Try not to let too many ghosts get away, because once you deposit 100 of them, you get a free guy, just like in the cartoon. And you'll need all of the free guys you can get because it's one hit and you're dead. The screen gets really crowded with ghosts and monsters sometimes, and it's hard to stay alive. Fortunately, only the monsters and obstacles can hurt you and not the ghosts. The graphics are adequate, but I wonder just what type of place our Ghostbuster is running around in. He doesn't seem to be in our world, and it's never really explained where he is. Or they, if you're playing multiplayer. The music What the hell is up with these guys? Are they what I think they are, just dressed in red? Anyway, the music plays the Ghostbusters theme over and over and over, and it's the only thing you'll hear during the levels outside of the boss theme. It gets old pretty fast. Like many of Data East's arcade games, this one was never ported to a home console.
Karna was Data East's mascot. He's appeared in many of their games. He's the first boss in Bad Dudes in the arcade and on the NES. He's also a playable character in Fighter's History, otherwise known as Karnov's Revenge. And of course, he is the star of his own game, Karnov. The arcade game Karnov was fun but tough. One hit and you're dead, and that was pretty typical of arcade games at the time. When Karnov was brought home to the Famicom and NES, some changes were made for the better. The home versions of the game let you take 2 hits before you die. There was no continue feature in the Japanese version, which made the game a bit more difficult. The US version does have infinite continues, which you'd think would make the game a breeze. Nope. I'm actually playing the Famicom version more because it has an intro movie and cutscenes between levels which were left out of the US version. Why do developers do this? I know it's probably a pain to translate all the text into English, but come on! Anyways, there are reasons that this game is difficult. For one, the hit detection is horrible. I swear that I am dodging enemy shots, but somehow I end up taking hits. Does this look like it hit me? There's lots of stuff to collect, from shot power-ups, bombs, shields, and even the letter K. 50 of these and you get an extra life. Trying to collect items can sometimes be a pain. Your whole body can be covering an icon and it still won't be collected. That's just not right. Still, Karnov actually controls very well. I like that he can jump fairly high. He also can extend a ladder if you collect the icon, which can help reach out of place items. Here's a tip though, don't fall off ledges or ladders. You won't get hurt, but you can't control your descent and you'll fall straight down very slowly. If you jump off ladders or edges, you can control your fall, which is much better. There's plenty of variety in the level design and even multiple paths. I like the swimming level where Karnov has swim flippers and even the plants hate you and shoot at you. The music will burn into your mind quickly since it's just a short looping track, but at least it's a good melody. This is still a fun game to play after all these years, and I would recommend it to anybody, even if it doesn't sound like I do.
Captain Silver was an odd little 1987 arcade game. You control a swashbuckling lad hacking and slashing his way through the long stage. As you kill enemies, letters will appear. What you desperately want to do is collect letters that spell your name, Captain Silver. Doing this gets you a free life. It's worth doing since if you touch anything, you die. If you fall into the water, you die. If you run out of time, you die. Yeah, you get the picture. There are fairies floating around which can power up your sword several levels, which is cool. There's also a shop where you can buy stuff if you have the key. Like I said, the levels here are pretty long and it's best to take your time. Or maybe that's my problem, I don't know, maybe I should rush. Captain Silver also came home to the Sega Master System. This is a fairly decent port, all things considered. In fact, I think it's better than the arcade as far as playability is concerned. Captain Silver still wants nothing more in life other than to spell his own name. The control is pretty smooth and it never feels like I'm taking a bunch of cheap shots. I think this one is probably more accessible to new players than the arcade version. The Japanese and European versions of this game have twice the mega power with extra levels and more stuff like that. Gee, thanks Sega for crapping all over your American customers. It also made it to the Famicom. This version changes things up a little. First and foremost, the graphics have all been redrawn. I really like the art style here, even if the colors are kinda lacking. Everything looks much more organic. The one-hit deaths are gone and now you have a life bar. Captain Silver no longer gives a crap about spelling his own name. He's over that, he's moved on. You can even enter houses where they take half of your life. Gee, thanks. I'm never coming over to your place again. But otherwise, the core gameplay is fairly similar. They even added a boss to the first level, which I cannot get past. It'd be really nice if I could see my life bar. This is probably my least favorite version simply due to this boss right here. Thankfully, this version never came out in the US on the NES.
Here's Dashin' Desperados on the Sega Genesis. This is a game that's all about doing whatever it takes to get a woman, even hurting your friend in the process. Girls like this are bad news and, well, you know, the old saying, bros before hoes. But if that was the motto of this game, then I guess we wouldn't have a game at all. Each level is basically a race to see who can get to Jenny first. The first one there wins Jenny's love momentarily because she's off again onto the next stage. Each area is set up with mini platforms and hazards to slow you down as you're racing. You also have bombs at your disposal to take out your opponent. If you hit or get hit by a bomb, it's not the end of the world. You just get stunned for a couple of seconds and then you're back in the race. This game is fun in short bursts, but it just gets too repetitive and there are also a few annoying aspects. Firstly, the screen is split so that both players can be seen at all times, even in single player mode. I can understand that it has to be like this in two-player mode, but in single player mode, is it really necessary? Secondly, in single player mode, your opponent is somewhat stupid. If by chance he does beat you to Jenny, well, that doesn't mean he's gonna get her. For some lame reason, he stays close to her and lobs bombs at you instead of claiming his prize. Not that women are prizes, so don't take that the wrong way. If you're smart like me, you can edge your way forward and lob your own bombs and stun him for a few seconds. Then run past him and take the girl. This feels cheap to me, like I didn't earn it, but I've only encountered this a few times. Graphically, it's not a bad looking game and the music is okay. There's plenty of voice sampling and the quality is just good enough so you can understand what they're saying.
Come on, okay.
Data East did a good job at trying something new. In fact, I don't ever think I've played a game like this before. Hell, I think you could make a fun drinking game out of it. Since the winner gets the girl, the loser must slam a can of beer. Feel like getting drunk, Joe?
You're the one who's gonna get drunk, yo. Bloody Wolf, or Woof as a linguistically challenged Dave would say, is an overhead running gun from 1988. I'm just kidding, Dave. I know you can and do say wolf. Woof. Anyway, you run around blasting enemies and rescuing what the game calls MIAs. I think they mean POWs, but what do I know? You can shoot, jump, and toss a limited amount of grenades. You can even run inside certain doors and see what lurks inside. Rescuing the MIAs will often give you a power-up like a flame shot or a spread gun. You can even ride a motorcycle and do bunny hops with it. I like how the enemies die in this game. They clutch their chest and reach for the sky and just knowing that they're goners. Almost everything about this game is cool, but damn is it choppy as hell. Bloody Wolf came home to the mighty TurboGrafx 16 courtesy of Data East themselves. This one makes it clear that you are once again rescuing the president. Gotta love Data East, they sure do enjoy putting our presidents in peril. This version also moves much more smoothly and is far more playable as a result. There's more story and dialogue here and many more prisoners to rescue. Some will give you items like this key here. This will let you open a box in another room later in the stage to get the muscle emphasis tablets, which increases your life bar. You have to press run to throw your grenades, but you get used to it soon enough. There's even an occasional cutscene as well that wasn't in the arcade. I even like the music better. However, one bad thing is that it's now one player only and you only have one life. However, you can continue as many times as you'd like and it sets you back at the nearest checkpoint, so it's really not bad at all. I like trying to figure out the patterns of some of the bosses and dying many times in the process. It's fun, really. I think that everything about this game is better than the arcade version, and it's definitely one of the better HuCard games available on the Turbo. Check it out, you won't regret it.
Windjammers is basically Pong rebooted for the Neo Geo. Your goal is to throw a frisbee past your opponent into a goal. Whoever has the most points at the end of 30 seconds or whoever scores 12 points first wins that round, and there are at least 2 rounds per match. The goals have different point values, so of course you'll always want to go for the highest one so you can win the match. But some points are better than no points, so you always want to take what you can get. You can also score points by lobbing the disc at your opponent. If they don't catch the disc, then you get 2 points for that. There's many types of offensive shots, from normal to fast and powerful throws. There's even a special throw if you power up your player enough. This throw is super powerful and hard to defend because each character has a different special throw. They all have different patterns that'll confuse the crap out of you if you aren't paying close attention. After you win 2 rounds, you get to toss a frisbee to your dog, and then you control the dog while he tries to catch it several hundred feet away while running through obstacles. There's some good graphics and some nice music that feels just right for this game. Data East did a good job of taking a simple game and making it really fun to play. It's too bad that this never made it to any other consoles other than the Neo Geo because I don't think many people know about this one. Check it out if you can, it's a good multiplayer game.
Spin Master is an action platformer for the Neo Geo. The first thing you'll probably notice is that the characters look almost identical to those from Dash and Desperados, but they've got different names, so who knows. In this one, your character is a real man, and that means his default weapon is a yo-yo. You can launch it in almost any direction and it fires almost as fast as you can mash the button. And of course you can change your weapon by opening one of the many treasure chests that are scattered throughout the game. These consist of boxing gloves, bombs, fireballs, ice spears, missiles, and even ninja stars. You can hold down the attack button for a more powerful shot, but I really didn't find it very worthwhile to do this. You even have a super attack, and it's different depending on what weapon you have. Oh, and you can bounce on enemies too if you want. You can take 3 hits before you die, and that's kind of refreshing for an arcade game. It is a bit surprising though, as the levels are really short and there's not a whole hell of a lot of them. The graphics are really nice and they feature great artwork and pastel colors generally not seen in Neo Geo games. The music's pretty nice as well, though it is a bit unmemorable. Still, this one is really fun, and Data East did great no matter what platform they made their games on.
Alright everybody, there's Data East for you. I mean, of course not all their games, but some of the more notable ones, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, and you know, Data East is a good company. It has a lot of games that I like, but not a lot of games that I love, that's for sure.
Well, I love, Boogie Wings in the arcade.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, we didn't cover that in depth in this episode, but, stuff like their arcade games were, like the later ones were crazy. They were awesome and stuff like that. And, they had some pretty good stuff on the home consoles too.
Yeah, what do you think about Data East?
Let us know, and in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Hey Dave, how would you pronounce the name of this game right here?
This game?
This game, yes.
Bloody Wolf.
Wolf.
Woof.
It's wolf, Dave.
Woof.
Whoa.
The L is silent. It's woof.
Notice my tongue. Wolf.
Say it. Woof.
Woof. Woof.
Wolf.
Woof.
Wolf.
It's woof.
Wolf.
Woof.
You know, whatever. You say it how you want. I gotta go wash my clothes for tomorrow.
Wash?